Okay, there you go. It's up and running now. Oh, okay. So what I would say is, um, since the last live shot of On Behalf of Minnesota I posted, um, I literally gathered up supplies and went out with my brother to resupply the people on the front lines of the vigil for Alex Pretty because it's literally 4 blocks away from us. There was between at max 12 people and at the least 8 people running that block um, at the time. The barricades had been set up earlier that very same day of the posting last week. Literally, I was out in the streets protesting that week, that day, uh, getting being part of that crowd that got the Minneapolis Police Department, who was covering the retreat of the ICE agents in the area. Um, we had gathered there, and I was part of the crowd that took over that block as the Minneapolis Police Department covered the retreat and tear gassed us on their way out. Uh, I don't know that I talked about that last time. It didn't strike me as much just because it's been standard. It's been uh, standard practice, if you will.
You mentioned that the tear gas this time was easier last week
That's right.
than
Yeah.
the time
So
before. Yeah.
yeah, because I went to the protests way back when the Black Lives Matter movement was happening in Portland, Oregon. So the tear gas I was quicker to recover. It definitely still hurt and felt a little more violent physically. There's a lot more dry heaving this time around, but I was able to recover quicker and actually return to the protest at that point. Um, so the update was when I returned, me and my brother restocked those folks out there. Morale was pretty low because they knew that essentially any movement, and they were surrounded by police when I went out there, and National Guard. So there was military and police vehicles out there as fence. You got scattered fences and trash bins and cans, tires, mattresses, whatever you could gather from the surrounding uh, populace um, was lining the streets at the time. uh, so it was a known factor that was like, okay, at any point in time they could move in and take back the block. That was outside of that was just a known factor, I guess. Uh, the people that were there were mostly people from the neighborhood, or I mean, like, no farther than like at the maximum 10 blocks away. But out of the 12 people there, out of like the roughly 12 people, 10 to 12 people, there was at least a couple that were outside of the city, like from outside the city limits. Um, and I know in the last update, I was talking about how I didn't view myself as kind of like that frontline protester of every day, sort of out there. But but yeah, I was there for this when the numbers were as low as 10 to 12 people. Um, So in those early hours, they um, I was updated by one of the other protesters because I checked both sides of the block because I was kind of going around, bouncing around to see what all people wanted or could use to help morale keep going and energy wise. Because it was, it was like 1 a.m. at that point by the time I was out there, 1 to 2 a.m. Uh, so brought out snacks, water, coffee, just anything that would. Because again, the water that they had was frozen because it's so fucking cold out there. So it's like
Yeah.
we brought out warm water in Tupperwares as well as just a pot to warm up stuff in. Um, Everything we brought, we assumed from the get go that we weren't getting back. Like that's, you're bringing it out there. Either the police or the protests. Like at some point, somebody's going to take this because there's no way. It was the police in the end. Just want to throw that out there right away.
Oh.
Um, yeah, and it was in a really shitty way. Um, I know I emphasized how few people are out there for those early hours. This is literally the night following Alex Peretti's death, murder, execution, all the various ways you can say that. Um, the one of the protesters said that in uh, oh, what's the name of the other lady? Oh, Good, Nicole Good. That's what it was. Uh, a really affable and I'll say this because like really affable Somali gentleman was part of the group, and he made a point of it uh, because he would use it as a tool to talk circles around any police officers that we ran into to delay as a delay tactic, sort of deal like I'm Somali, I'm from here, we're all brothers, we're all like and he was able to run those circles to kind of buy time for anyone that was in the area. Um, and as one of the very uh, I don't recall that there was any other. Uh, to be quite honest with you, I don't know there was any other white guy sitting out there doing this stuff. So I played the part of the very aggressive, very loud white ally in that moment. Throughout that night, uh, there were there was a more diverse group of folks, like overall, early on in that when you got a dozen or so people, but um, around the time frame of 4 a.m. And I do believe I have the timestamp on my WhatsApp, which I got to come back to at some point. Uh, in the WhatsApp, I have a timestamp of 4:15, 4:20. I send out the call to my neighborhood app, to my neighborhood chat, that hey, anybody who can come out here, please do. They're trying to break up the vigil because they're taking down the barricades. And when I sent that, I was sending that about between 5 to 10 minutes after the fact they had tear gassed the 4 to 5 people that was on one side of the barricades of the block. So a group of people that have put up no resistance knew that the police could move in at any moment. Were getting tear gassed. Uh, yeah. Uh, as the opening bit, and I just happened to not be a part of that group as I was checking on the other side because I had just restocked them, and I was going over, hey, how's this side doing? Do you guys need anything like water? It was just I just happened to be on the side that didn't get tear gassed. Um, so those were people that were mostly my neighbors that got tear gassed, and they did not make their way back to the scene. Uh, I, I do believe that I don't believe that they got arrested. Um, I do know that a guy who was pretty much I mean, he was absolutely nonverbal, had been running a stream during that entire sit-in. Uh, had reached he literally showed that he'd reached 17 hours of constant streaming of that.
Oh,
So he was one of the people, and I tried looking it up, but how are you going to do it? The censorship is strong enough and it's vague enough where I'm like, I don't know how to find the 17-hour stream of uh, the first night's vigil. Um, so that's gone to the wind. This is I'm saying all this because it is important. That's the first step. That's the first insidious thing, and it's the least insidious thing. But it keeps ramping up. Um, the tear gassing that was insidious because the mayor and the police chief have publicly come out against ICE as they're like,
yeah.
oh, we're going to move against it. However, also in tandem with that, you have the letter of declaration of the police union department coming out pro ICE, like the internal document that was uh, saying that the police are pro ICE. And they are. That when you were talking about 4 to 5 people uh, getting tear gassed, and they have put up literally no resistance because they know they have nothing to offer um, as far as resistance is concerned. That's tear gassing for fun. Those are taxpayer dollars that are going towards a situation where you didn't have to do that. They just didn't have to do that, but they did it for fun, and that was the Minneapolis Police Department on its own. Had nothing to do with ICE. Um, the as they moved in, they demanded that we put out all of our fires that were keeping us warm. Um, People had been bringing out logs in fire pits that were very self-contained. Uh, so the fire department was called in. The city, I don't know. We have a pretty robust city cleaning department, which can't be mad about that. That's a pretty nice internal thing. It takes care of our parks, our streets, our sidewalks, all that stuff. But they were called in to take care of this. Um, so the very structure that keeps our streets like clean and healthy and beautiful, uh, were being called in to take away the barricades that were blocking off the streets. Which there's been uh, I'd say that enough protesters were pro it that it got built up and were there and stood there for hours and hours and hours on end. But I did get comments from people that were like, "Yeah, man, these businesses need to have access and such," and it bothered me in that moment because it bothered me because the barricades only blocked the path of vehicles; they did not block the path of the sidewalks, nor do they block the alleyways that led to business parking. So those local businesses were very slightly hindered if these things were to stay in place. Um, it's a major street. I mean, it's a major street within the city. Uh, Kind of the upper class area too. Um, but to circle back to okay, so they tear gassed half of the people that were there, started taking down the barricades, and the half of us that were left there that didn't get tear gassed out were basically it was just me and the rest of them just trying to hold the line and stop them from uh, taking down or brushing away Alex Peretti's shrine. And that's so I got done with that live video feed last week. I went out and I did this, and that was the rest of my night. The rest of my night was staying up until 7 a.m. I got home at 7 a.m. because that whole night from when I ended that video feed was restocking supplies, trying to reboost morale of the overnights people that were there. And then once most of them were tear gassed out, the rest of us had to hold the line to try and make sure that the shrine to Alex Peretti didn't get swept away. uh, and that was surreal. It was sickening. I mean, like it was having to talk with we're having to do with the, and I talked about the guy who really pointed out that he was Somali. He was playing the affable character in the protest situation because he's the one talking to the cop, and the cop is like, "Hey guys, just gotta move the shrine in about 3 feet. So we have to talk. We have to move and touch a dead man's shrine." Uh, and we're all taking our time as best we can. These people have been here longer than I've been, so that I've no court. Like, this is not me complaining. This is me trying to tell the story of the people I've seen that were there longer than I was. Um, and I can tell you, I was the only white guy. I was the for that initial part after the tear gassing because there was other white people there, but they got tear gassed, so they were out. Um, uh, so a very affable man kept the cop, just kind of kept running the cop in circles, and this cop is trying to play nice with us, and I'm not having any of it because they just tear gas people within the hour of when this guy's coming out here, just doing the very um, when people talk about when you see if you look and find the articles about Minneapolis where they're talking about the district attorney and the mayor are lying and the police chief are lying. They're talking about the fact they are doing the soft lie to keep people calm. And that's what this guy's
Right.
job was. I was seeing it firsthand where it's like on the ground floor, it's this guy who's got to come in and be like, "Hey guys, let's just fuck with this dead guy's tomb for a bit. It's totally cool. I'm on your side. I know that I was there with these guys that tear gassed you." So I was either part of them, they were my colleagues, my friends, or my boss. Any and or all of them. That's who you're talking to. Um, so it was a very slow and arduous path to close up, to pull in that shrine and retouch it up so that it wasn't getting swept away by the city crews, which we did have to. I had to yell at the cops. I had to yell at the sweeping crews. We just had to we had to stand around and yell at people all night long and just hope they didn't do anything to us. It was eventually once the news crews came in, there was a little bit of a breather because we were like, okay, at the very least, as long as there's cameras here, like official cameras, there nobody's gonna do anything fucking violent at anybody. Hopefully, I mean, it just adds a layer of protection. Um, we at that point there was a couple of us, a couple people had come in. Three of us were standing around, kind of looking around at each other, like we're not really prepared to speak to the press. But CNN was there asking if anybody would talk, and we are like, it's not really for us. But we did find one of the just a very young gentleman who had been sitting out there for I don't know how long, but he had literal icicles on his beard, sort of deal. And the I know that because the press person she asked about it. Um, I wish I could offer a link or something because
It's, I've not necessarily had that
uh,
as a
he
beard, but I've had
spoke
it
so
come from
well
my head.
of the
Yeah.
situation and really kind of like in such a way that isn't along the mainstream lines of just not wanting to view Alex as a martyr because that's not who he was. He was just a human being doing the best that he could in the moment, and then he got murdered, which is, you know, that stands out. It stands out to me because of a previous element, which is I'm posting. I'm basically making it the image of this video, but and I'll talk on that in a second. But before I do that, it's the Alex Peretti was what I would term as the verb of he was Philando Castile, which happened, which was a man in 2016 in Minneapolis. That's 4 years before George Floyd happened. And I remember working in the parks department um, and sitting in the break room and having me and all the staff of various different ethnicities looking up the TV and watching the news as we got the live stream of Philando Castile getting murdered in his car with his girlfriend and their I don't know if it was their child or the child that he was helping raise, but in either case, it was his girlfriend, his partner at the time, and a child in the car. And it was one of the most heartbreaking videos I've ever seen because you get to watch this situation where this man is notifying the police officers that he does have a firearm, much like Alex Peretti had a firearm. He did not have it out. He had in no way was threatening anyone. And the police officer pulled out their gun and shot him multiple times in his vehicle. And as he lay bleeding out, you're watching and you watch the video, you watch the actual newscast video, which you can still find to this day. Um, I think it's horrific in that you're having to hear because you can only because it's coming from Philando Castile's point of view. That's where the camera is coming from. So you don't get to see him, but you can hear him as he is calmly dying, and you get to witness as his girlfriend is calmly having to stay calm in a situation where her partner has been shot because they have a child in the back seat and they all have to try and stay calm because who knows who else is going to be shot in that situation. And this is 4 years before George Floyd. And sitting in a break room when I'm watching that the summer of that happened, that event happening, and I'm just having to look over at other people. I mean, like, just these are the people that are keeping the city open, keeping the city running to its various degrees. These are people employed by the city to keep the city functioning and looking nice. And, we have a great parks program, and they just have to shake their heads and just acknowledge that, yep, it's just another day. It's just that was just another day for Black America 4 years before George Floyd. And that one that one hurt. And I know that there's others that would hurt just as much, but this is the one that I was how do you say it? Like this it's been an ongoing problem. This problem has been continuous as far as the police and state. and federal levels of just murdering people. It's been going on for a long time, and it isn't. Uh, as you get to see in recent developments, it isn't contained to race or even class to some degree, but it is consistent and it has a consistent intent. Um, Much like Alex Peretti, Philando Castile's murderers suffered no consequences for their actions. I have no belief that Alex Peretti or Nicole Good's uh, murderers will suffer any consequences. And when people talk about how Minneapolis residents are foregoing looking to the establishment, essentially the elected officials and established police departments to protect them, that's not a thing we're doing. That's very true. That's very true. Because again, 10 people in the middle of the night, no camera crews, no extra fluff. And they tear gassed him just for fun. There was no resistance. There was nothing. That was taxpayer dollars to harm people. Now, the insidious bit is that that young man who did that CNN interview, I haven't been able to find him. That 17-hour stream, haven't been able to find it. And when I posted the call at 4:15 to 4:30, I sent out two separate messages for people to show up to the sidewalk because they're taking out the barricades and they're trying to break up the vigil uh, for Alex Preddy's vigil. Nobody showed up and nobody responded because nobody got that message until was it? I sent it out 4:15 to 4:30, two separate messages. They didn't get that stuff until 9:30 a.m. And I don't have a way to explain that because I got
Mm.
home at 7 a.m. after some people had shown up. Enough people, but I went home because it was so cold and I was so tired and I was so hungry at 7 a.m. and three people had finally showed up to take my place. Um, yeah, what is that? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Yeah, 5 hours. There was a 5 hour delay uh, in when I sent out that message and when it was received by everyone in my neighborhood. WhatsApp is absolutely compromised. CNN was only interested in people who were physical neighbors of Alex Preddy. And the Minneapolis Police Department was tear gassing 4 to 5 people because that's what they wanted to do. There was those people weren't putting up a resistance and they couldn't have even if they wanted to. There were way too many police officers. And I highlight an individual who was killed back in 2016 because that's almost 10 years ago now. And that's not even as far back as it goes. That's just one of the ones that stood out to me and really mirrors what happened to Alex Pretty. So
I wish I could genuinely
I'm just
comment.
gonna say what I say to everybody when I deliver pizzas in the neighborhood to all the people who can't step out of their homes because they're not safe to do
Yeah.
so. Stay warm, stay safe.